what's happening as far as teachers are concerned, and some of the pressures that they face. And we've found that lockdown has just been a period of incredible uncertainty. And what I thought we'd do is just for a moment talk about some of the pressure, some of the disruption that teachers are being subjected to. I've got a member of the SA Society of Psychiatrists joining us, Dr. Aneshree Moodley, not only on the line, so not only are we talking on radio, but we're also live on social media this morning. Doctor, thanks so much for your time this morning at our breakfast.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on Heart FM.
All right, absolute pleasure. We just assume that the teachers are equipped with the skill to be able to, I mean, they've been teaching for many years, and in some cases we've got teachers with 20 or 30 years experience. And we just assume that they'd almost be able to take this level of disruption and uncertainty in their stride without realizing that we're dealing with something of an absolutely unprecedented nature. And that brings new pressure to bear on the classroom dynamic, right?
Yes, absolutely. I would agree. I think that teachers, you're right, we've got very experienced teachers out there and they're very skilled at teaching. However, one of the challenges that everyone has been faced with has been moving onto the virtual platform. So using electronic devices and different forms of media in order to teach. And I think that's been a stumbling block to several, I would assume, categories of teachers, depending on access to resources, depending on access to Wi-Fi or internet connectivity, as well as reaching learners, so are learners able to access the same resources for the virtual classroom, and to what extent?
And also, I mean, just we mustn't lose sight of the fact that we're in a pandemic, and people are trying to avoid large numbers and gatherings as much as they can. Yet teachers are forced on an ongoing basis to have to deal with multiple classroom situations. So it's different kids with different potential risks. That also, I'm sure, weighs quite heavily on their psyche.
Yes, indeed. I think that teachers are, at the forefront of this pandemic, and they are possibly the unsung heroes, teaching all of our children on a daily basis, addressing crowds of people, putting themselves at risk for contracting COVID-19, as well as being a vector to transmit the illness. Of course, teachers themselves have families and communities that they belong to. So they're carrying, so it's twofold. They're carrying the stresses of having, of living through a pandemic, just like all of us are, with our families and loved ones, etc., as well as carrying the risk of going to work and looking after these young minds as well, and expose the exposure of COVID-19 and what that could do to the learners as well as to them. So daily risk.
We've actually got you on the radio to talk about what teachers can do to try and diffuse some of the tension. However, I think it's important for us first to make the case that there's genuine fear and genuine tension that almost borders on perhaps anxiety or even depression on the part of teachers. So I think we've done a very good job of explaining that. So let's look at what teachers can do, because often with mental health, it's the one thing we end up sacrificing as we plod along on the daily grind. What should teachers as a collective be doing to try and address some of what you've just outlined to us?
Right. Thank you. Great question. Firstly, I just want to say that there are indeed higher rates of anxiety and depression appearing now amongst our teachers. And I think that it's paramount importance that they do learn how to care for themselves, because when they're in the classroom, they wear many hats. And because they spend so many hours with the kids, they also take on the conscious or unconscious role of being a caregiver. So therefore, the teacher's behavior or mental well-being immediately is mirrored or absorbed by the child. So if the teacher's anxious or depressed, that's going to directly impact on the learner as well, and on their ability to learn. So it is indeed important for teachers to firstly acknowledge that they are at risk for anxiety or depression, or that they actually do have symptoms of this illness, and then to take steps to try and help themselves, whether that is self-care, so practicing some meditation or taking long walks or listening to some relaxing music, or it is seeking out professional help and counseling from a psychologist or psychiatrist, or whatever access to resources that they might have. Also, we recommend the 33-30 sort of strategy, which is 30 seconds of breathing, 3 minutes of paying attention to whatever task or activity you're doing. So if you're cooking, you just pay attention to cooking, or if you're having a cup of coffee, you just pay attention to that, and that's called mindfulness. And then 30 minutes of actually doing a stress relieving activity such as exercise or walk.
Yeah, I noted with interest. I mean, there was a lot floating on social media about a week and a half ago when there was talk of doing away with the upcoming school holiday, and the teacher unions were saying, well, teachers need a break. They need just a change of scenery. They need to step out of the classroom. And there was almost this overwhelming public reaction to say, what break? Teachers have got it easy. They're busy with half-full classes. They're working online in some cases. The teachers have absolutely nothing to complain about. And I suppose it's difficult to try and incorporate some of what you've just outlined against that backdrop of negativity and doubt.
Yes, no, I agree. I think that there's possibly a misconception about what teachers do during their work hours, and I'm not the right person, I'm not the expert in that field to talk, but I would, from what I've heard of working with teachers, is that their day continues past 2:30 or whatever time the school closes. They've got marking to do, they've got lesson preparation to do, and they've got their own lives to lead as well, and roles that they play in their own communities. So they do need a holiday, just like all of us need a holiday. And I think teachers as well, it's different. They don't get to take leave. They need to have leave given to them during school holidays. The only time that an educator would be granted leave is for sick leave or special reasons.
All right, and as much as we're talking about teachers here, Doctor, we I mean, this mindfulness and just absorbing oneself into perhaps oneself, as opposed to just giving yourself up to the universe. I mean, that approach spans across career paths. It's not just for teachers, surely.
Absolutely, yes. Mindfulness is a practice that we can all, adopt. Some of us might be adopting it and practicing it without realizing. It essentially means having your mind or all 5 of your senses fully present during an activity. It is a practice that's been borrowed by psychiatry and psychology from Eastern philosophy, so from Buddhism, but it has been westernized and modernized to suit today's times. So very, very interesting philosophy. I would recommend your listeners to, just search it on the internet. There's lots of helpful videos on how to practice mindfulness, but it is, as you said, very simple and very difficult. So being fully present within yourself, which is exceedingly difficult because I think all of our thoughts just tend to run away with themselves. So it's very difficult to actually just concentrate on drinking a cup of coffee, for example.
All right. Speaking of which, I'm about to do that right now. I'm going to thank you very much for your time, Doctor. I think you've helped a great many. I'm just looking at some of the reaction coming through on our WhatsApp line, and you've got a massive thumbs up from very many teachers saying, finally, now somebody understands what we're going through and some of the pressures. So thanks very much for that solid advice.
You're very welcome. Okay.
All
Have
right.
a good day.
You too. There we go. Dr. Aneshree Moodley is a member of the SA Society of Psychiatrists. She specializes in adolescent psychiatry, speaking to us this morning right here on A Hot Breakfast.